Good morning. If you want to see how we made this almost 4x4 chalkboard, stay tuned because that's what we're going to do today. Good morning and welcome to another Memphis Monday 250, the 42nd week of year 5. Today we've got an interesting project. I think it'll be a quick one. We're going to make a two-sided blackboard or chalkboard. I don't like whiteboards. I like chalk. Can't think of anything else. Let's knock off that chit-chat and get to work. The chalkboard paint that I'm using is water-based, but before it gets a hard finish, it takes a couple of days to dry, so I've already painted this piece of plywood on both sides. So it'll be ready. This is the paint I'm using. It's water-based, black. Funny story, I forgot that this was water-based, and I tried to thin it a little bit with paint thinner, and it wouldn't even mix. Didn't go well. The paint is not sticking real good. This plywood is too flimsy and too rough. I'm going to have to start over. I need a better quality piece of plywood. I was just trying to use this scrap here, but this isn't going to work. You can see all the white places in it. We need a better piece of plywood, and to make matters worse, I'm out of chalkboard paint, so I need to go get some more chalkboard paint. This is kind of a takeaway. This little, I call this a skill saw spacer. It's measured across here exactly 1 1/8 so that I can set this down on my line and mark the measuring line when I want to cut an exact cut with my skill saw. And then I get this dealio here. Let's go set them up. So what I have here is I have the 48-inch mark right here. And I take this spacer, put it between both of the marks, I can take my clamp, my straight edge, and line it up with that spacer. Now when I run my saw along that edge, it'll make the cut exactly where I want it to be. It drives my brother nuts, but I often just cut this with a jigsaw. But in this case, this is going to be a finished edge, so I want to make the cut as nice as possible. So now I put my saw right up against that clamp, that straight edge. Well, we were going to make a small chalkboard, now we're going to make a big one. This one's really big. 4 feet by 4 feet. But we don't have any paint. Let's go buy some paint. Well, we're off to Lowe's. I'm just bringing my little truck because the only thing I'm going to buy is the paint. So I got to get that paint down because it's takes several hours to dry before you can use it, and it needs to be dry enough to work with. So this is actually a terrible weakness I have. Every time I start a project, it seems like I find some excuse to come to Lowe's. Let's try something different. Let's get some of this tintable chalkboard paint and do it in green. Well, what I'm doing here is cutting off about 5 inches all the way around this, and I'll give you a few minutes to think about it, and it'll be like a contest. Try to figure out why I'm doing this. The deal is, it was 48 inches square, and I cut it down to 44 inches squared. So, why did I do that? And if you figure it out, you're a genius. So put your answer in the comments. So I'll let this first coat dry on this one side, and then I'll flip it over, do the other side. So I'll see you in about 3 hours. Well, I got our board painted. I decided to just put one coat on it. Let me show you why. Over here on the my other chalkboard, you kind of see why I don't want to get this paint on too thick, because it's very, very thick paint, and you know, and it wants to leave heavy brush strokes. Now for the answer to the mystery question, the reason I had to cut that thing, it was, remember, it was originally 48 inches square, and I cut it down to 20. I cut about 4 inches off of the edges. And the reason is because if something's 48 inches long and you're using an 8-foot board like to make your trim, you're not going to be able to make your trim out of one board. I'll be able to make all my trim from this 8-foot 2x4, but if I hadn't cut it down, I'd have had to use 2 2x4s. So, and that carries on to cabinet making and all that stuff. If you make something, say you make something 49 inches, well, that means you're going to have a remnant that doesn't go evenly into 8, and it's going to leave you with some extra scrap. Okay, I'm going to rip this thing down the center. It's 3.5 inches, so I'll rip it right down the center at 1 3/4 of an inch. Now normally when you cut a board, you measure from the fence to the inside of the blade. But in this case, something to remember, I want to measure from the fence to the center of the blade, because I want to cut this board exactly in half. Here on our prototype chalkboard, this trim doesn't just come right up to the edge of the board. There is a dado on the inside of this trim that the board slides into, so that on the trim can't see that. Trim looks like this, and the chalkboard slides into that slot. So our chalkboard is almost exactly a ½ inch. So I'll be putting a dado right in the center of this trim, a ½ inch wide. Now you'd think I'd remember it as often as I do it, but I guess I'm not that smart. I've got what it takes to make various size dados and rabbets written on the side of my cabinet. So in this case, I want a ½ inch dado. That's 2 saw blades, 2 chippers, 1 thin chipper, and 1 20 thousandths spacer. You've seen this many times, but I never talked about it. I keep all my dado stuff and saws and wrenches and all the stuff for changing blades out in this little plastic bucket, so that whenever I need to put a dado blade in or change blades or something, all I have to do is grab this plastic bucket, and I don't have to go running around the shop looking for stuff. Okay, what do we say? A regular spacer, another regular spacer, a thin spacer, which is half the thickness of the regular spacer. Let's put the 20 thousandths. There's the 20 thousandths spacer, shim. Don't tighten these things up real tight. Okay, let's see if this works. This is a practice piece right here. Yeah, that's going to work. You see how that trim overlaps there? Now this, you can use this for picture frames and all kinds of different applications. Works real good. This is our practice piece. You know, we started out with a common 2x4, and we're going to try to make this look like trim. So I've got this little roundover detail right here on all 4 corners. And we may put another detail down the center on both sides. Again, our wraparound trim here. Here's the detail I added. See the step down here? It's got a step here and a step here. Same thing on the other side. Now what I'm going to do is add a groove to the side. See the groove right there. And that'll go all the way along the trim, right in the center. I'm going to stain this trim before I install it because I don't want to get stain on my chalkboard. This is a test piece right here. I'm just going to see what this darker stain looks like. It's really dark, but I plan on putting it on and then wiping it off right away. Except down in the cracks and crevices. Which will show off the detail. I think we'll go with this. Here's a close-up of how the trim goes on. On this wraparound trim, you can see that the edge of the thing you're trimming is buried inside the wood. So when you mark this, you have to mark it inside. Let's go mark a piece. Here I have you set up so you can see how you got to mark this. So you can see where the end of my board goes in there. And I got to reach back in there and mark my trim on the inside of that notch. Okay, now you can see that. I'm over here on the saw. You can see that line right in there. And I got to set up my blade to cut just on the outside of it. Now it's a little easier on my saw because I have the laser deal. So let's give it a whirl. I'm going to turn her on. Now you can see we really nail that cut. See that line? We're right on that line. When I put the stain on this trim, I was careful not to get any glue down in the slot there. And so I should get some glue adhesion. Technically, you don't even need to glue this trim on, but I'm doing it anyway. Since it's a shop fixture, I want to make sure it's as strong as possible. And it's not going to expand or contract, so shouldn't be a problem. And I'll stick it on with brads. Well, here's our chalkboard for Memphis Monday 250. Pretty simple project, but we had a lot of takeaways. And now I can put my to-do list on here. Let's see. Restore Potter's Bench. So if the creek don't rise, that'll be next week's project. Well, that does it for Memphis Monday 250, week 42 of our 5th year. We did a 2-sided chalkboard, but you can also use that wraparound molding technique on picture frames, bulletin boards, just about anything where you have tables, whatever. Works real good, and for a chalkboard like that, it really gives it some flexibility. I think since it was a simple project, we were able to go through the whole design process. Remember, we got started and we decided we didn't like that other board, and so we made a new one. And so it's all figured in. Now that's all I got to say. Make sure you comment and like and favorite and share and all the stuff you do on the internet. But most important, make sure you're back here next week for Memphis Monday 251. Thanks for playing along.